Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. I'm presenting today it's not a new moon, it's a full moon that occurred on the 15th of December. And I just last night was working with somebody in astrology, a lecture that I attended, and he's really sharp with some software, so I had a lot of questions for him. And one of the things that he was able to do was help me deal with dual monitors, which is one of the reasons why I have not been able to do any real recordings for the channel, because I absolutely could not get my program to work. And that reasoning happens to be because of dual monitors. So he was wonderful. He taught me what to do. So I'm going to look at what this chart holds for us, because as I said in my last video, there's a lot of things that are very unseen. And I showed you why that was. Because for months, many months, Neptune would be the midpoint of Uranus and Pluto. And literally, as I explained in that video, what that means is that there's a lot of changes going on and a lot of things that are happening, but we are unaware of it. And this is not just in the governments, because we can see that's all taking place, but it's also in our own lives. And that is why I think it's really important to look at this, because we could say, oh yeah, it's going on in the world, but somehow we don't make the connections that we need to understand what is going on in our lives personally that is also being reflected in these charts. I was listening to somebody, because you know I listen to a lot of different people online, not so much astrologers, ironically, but I was listening to somebody online talking about how we don't understand what's going on, and how we keep focusing on the big macro governmental, what's going on in every government in the country, how many countries are on the streets right now. I mean, we could go on and on. But the reality is, you have to look at your own personal life, and you have to say to yourself, is your significant other cheating on you? Is your best friend really looking out for you? Or are they looking out for themselves and you're kind of in the way? I mean, I'm not saying any of these things are happening. What I'm saying is that when I tell you that there's a lot going on in the world that we don't know about, we cannot eliminate or disassociate that from our own lives. I just really, really feel that's important to say. For some people, there will be this great need to hermit, go within, take some time by yourself. I'm in favor of that. I have often said in the last 6 to 8 weeks that if I could sleep for the next 6 to 8 months, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because I don't think it's going to be easy for anybody in the next several months. And that includes our personal lives. I know that's really interesting, and I did try to go into that with regards to the last video. I spoke a lot about the many people I know having health struggles. Talk about things that you can't really see, okay? Whatever is going on inside of our own lives and inside of our own bodies, I just don't think is going to be very visible for us. So let's talk about the full moon. Now, just very briefly, you know, new moons, significators for new times. What's going on? How can, we could start new projects or do new things. Although I wouldn't really be doing it right now. Lots of retrogrades, but bear that along, but just bearing that, aside. I think that the full moon itself is going to be illuminating. And what I mean by that is, and I don't think we can expect it to be immediately, but I think it's going to be illuminating over the next several weeks. Okay? Maybe even taking us into the new moon, but then beyond that new moon. Or maybe the new moon, and we'll, maybe I'll look at that too, will help us decipher more of what's going on. So in other words, starting new programs or new things that can help us to decipher what's going on. Honestly, Neptune will not be out of that midpoint until like June or something. So, when people say spring, they're not kidding. We have to get through all that March stuff where Neptune and Saturn will change signs. So, what fun. And they're slow movers. So it's really significant. They're actually, changing at the same time. Ironically, and I really do want to point this out, this particular, and I'm going to see if you can see this, you're going to notice that there is a Mercury, here it is, at 6 degrees, 25 minutes of Sagittarius. It just stationed on the same day, at the same time as did this full moon. So let's talk about illumination. Now, I'm not going to say that everything's going to be illuminated. I'm thinking it's going to come like flashes of lightning. This is going to present itself. That's going to present itself. And I think these are things that we need to concern ourselves with. Okay? So what I'm going to do today to see if we can unravel some of this, I'm not even going to use Nova. I was going to use chart wheels, but I realized the importance of the asteroids. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'll only use a couple asteroids, which is what I'm going to be doing in a lecture that's coming up that I'll be doing. And in that lecture, my idea was that I would just go through each of these asteroids on each of the charts, okay? But then I'm only working with 3 asteroids, and that's really different. If I'm going to be working with as many asteroids as we're going to be working with on this wheel, I think we should just, not go that route. So as much as I love that software and could show you things on that software, like that continuous midpoint, I'm going to have to do everything I'm doing right here on Solar Fire. So we see the stationing Mercury. That's very important because Mercury was retrograde and now it stopped. It's going to go retrograde again before spring, I might add. But for the moment, it has stationed after the retrograde, and it will begin its direct motion forward through the sign of Sagittarius. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about before I even get to those angles, which are very important, I want to talk about the fact that the sun and moon are in opposition at 23 degrees, 52 minutes of Sagittarius and Gemini. I just think it's kind of interesting that I'm starting back with this particular full moon, which happens to rest exactly on my own Saturn, which has been very, very affected by everything going on, which is the systems. And I had a software problem. It's hilarious. So here I am, days after the event, but with a fixed system. Okay? But I want to talk about, for each of us personally, that axis of the sun and moon. And we're going to look at it on a dial, no fear. But let's look at the 2nd and the 8th house. What does it represent? The sun itself represents our values, our self-worth, our morals, our ethically who are we. Not just how much we're worth and bring in. Because when you're looking at the 2nd house, you're also looking at what you believe. are your values? Like, what do you value in life? What's important to you versus other people's resources? I don't like using politics, but let me for one moment. And honestly, this is only an example. I want you to look at this in regard to your own life. The new president has a thing for pay to play. Oh my God, is that not sun versus moon? You're only valuable if you can give me $1 billion. That's pay to play, but is also, I consider that almost blackmail. Let's give up your ethics and morals because then I can pay you more money or I can do you a favor. So I'm asking you all to look for this in your own lives. Is there an area of your life where you have to kind of give up your integrity for the overall value of whatever it is? I got to stay with this man who cheats on me because I'm financially dependent. I got to stay with this job where this person treats me like crap, but I need my bonus. Look at it. Look at the dynamics of it. And are you becoming aware where you might be asked to give up something you truly believe in for the sake of somebody else, or for the sake of peace, or for this? I'm not always sure that's a good idea, guys, and that's all I'm saying. But it's something that we all have to work out as individuals. When I was a dance teacher, many lifetimes ago, it was this lifetime, but decades, I did it for 25 years. And one of the things I did was I really wanted the girls to value their own worth and their own value. And since they were teenage girls, I really emphasized that they should never settle. Not for a boyfriend, not for a husband, not for anything or anyone. Don't settle because society says women should be involved with somebody. No. Again, if it's not you, don't do it. Okay? If this person doesn't cherish you, which right now I believe is very true of the younger generations, and I feel very badly, and it makes me very happy that for 25 years this was the theme by which I brought these girls up. Never settle. Do not stay in relationships that are abusive. Do not stay where you are not valued. And this is going to be particularly true for women, particularly right now. This is your time, ladies. For 25 years, I trained young girls to stand up. And it's almost as though I had a premonition we were coming here. And I knew that Iris was coming back or something. And I might have, because I've been an astrologer literally my whole life. So who knows what drives me sometimes. Anyway, let's look at, besides those very intensive points, Mercury, Sun, Moon, because they're personal, they relate to you on a personal level. I thought it was a great place to start. So let's look at, we're looking at, let me just double check something. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had DC on there. Although I live literally in a quick drive distance from DC, but it is different by about, I'm going to say 8 minutes. I know. But, 8 minutes is 8 minutes. So I wanted to verify that I actually had done this for DC. And even though I live in a different state, anyone who's familiar with the East Coast will know that we can drive from city to city, and we do it all the time. So DC, I think, at best, is 90 minutes away. And I don't even think it's that far. I think if you give yourself a good hour. But the problem is DC is very hard to navigate once you're in there. So any place that we would be going, we would always leave a little extra time. Okay. So for those few hours, it is, or that less than 90 minutes or whatever it is, it's about 8 minutes of difference on the ascendant. Okay? So I want to look at this because I saw some really cool stuff here. And that's why I wanted to be sure I was right. So the reason why I did not go and check this out and see what's going on with just the chart and use Nova, and decided to stay with Solar Fire is because of these asteroids. Okay? So I'm going to tell you right now that things are going to go slow. They've already gone slow in my opinion. But things in life are going really slow. And I have felt this extremely personally. But then again, I have a world chart moon. Okay, I have an Aries point moon. Nothing goes on in this world that I don't feel in my own stomach, literally. Okay? And that's been rather rough, and I'm anticipating a fairly rough 25. I'll be happy when fall gets here. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of remembering. Okay, now I don't know how this is going to play out. Could this be that in your own personal relationships, you're remembering the way things were? Could it be that in politics, you're remembering the way things were? Or could it be that people are or have promised things that can't happen? Whether it's politics, your boss, your lover, your partner. Okay? Then we move on, and I believe this girl is Medusa. And I'll tell you in a sec because I write this stuff down. Yeah. Oh, no, it's not Medusa. No, I take it back. Make. I like that better. Okay. So what it's saying is that there is a slowness going on that will remake us. I guarantee you get burned by a partner. You get burned by a significant other. You get burned by a best friend. You get burned politically. Oh my, it's time to remake yourself. And that's what it's going to be, okay? And so we have this memory, but then we realize, you know what? I can't continue being like this. And I see a lot of focus in goals. Behind the scenes, sort of like when people are dieting. No one really knows until they lose weight, right? Because it happens behind the scenes. So I'm not saying that's what it is, by the way. But for some people it could be. But I feel like some things are being worked at behind the scenes, and we don't know about it. One of the things that does show up here quite strongly is partnerships and our pride. How are partnerships going to affect our pride? Well, I just named a few ways, and I wasn't looking at any individual chart when I said those things. Only this one. Okay? So there are some things going on with partners that we need to question. And what we need to question is their ideology. And here we go back to that 8th and 2nd house relationship. because a lot of people are going to question that. And by the way, the questioning is in the first house. That will not be hidden. That will be right out there, right out in front. Our pride being hurt might be hidden. Okay, so look out, people. I think our pride could be hurt coming up. Okay, so moving on, let's look at the descendant. Okay, Poseidon is also propaganda, people, and I really, really, really do want to note that some people are highly affected by propaganda. And I don't hold it against people that are. I just sometimes will use the phrase that I really wish they had done their homework, or that they were like me and were not adverse to going down a few rabbit holes when you hear something that sounds a little funkadelic. Maybe you go down some rabbit holes. Check it out. Look and see what the whole story is, because if you're counting on the news, you're a fool. You're a fool. Okay? I made the crack recently that I don't listen to news. Okay, so let's start, bing, I don't do it. Why? Because in the United States, our whole media is owned by 6 conglomerates. They're all leaning not my direction. And so I don't ever feel, and have never felt, that we've had a free press. I know, but I never have. Okay, I am definitely not someone who walks around going, "Yeah, we're in a free country," because no, we're not. We're not in a free country when people who are not elected get into office, and that's been happening. Not just this election, that's been happening for decades in my lifetime. I don't know how somebody could have an approval rating of 15 and still end up being in office. That has always baffled me. So I'm not trustworthy, okay, of those things. I have made comments, though, that I think it's okay to read other English-speaking news out of this country, because sometimes they do have a better perspective on what's going on here than we do, because we're too in it and you can't see anything. So, my advice is do not listen to the news. They know crap. Or if they do know, they're not going to tell you. Okay? So start going down rabbit holes. Use the internet. We have AI that may or may not tell you the truth, but we also have other countries that speak English, that do have free press, and you could read their news about us. That's what I like to do. Go talk to people out of the country. We can do that now. We live in this wonderful 21st century where I listened to this morning Australia. I listened to Great Britain. Okay, so again, we're not limited anymore. Don't limit yourself. Just some advice. So we get over to this descendant, and kind of like the way I started that conversation, because it kind of led me right here. The first thing we've got over here, now it is retrograde, but it's Phaethon. So you have to think about Phaethon to Poseidon, which is propaganda. Sometimes it's enlightening, okay? So I don't want to say it's all bad, Poseidon's also affiliated with higher education. It's affiliated with religion, spirituality, although I am very iffy on religion myself. So just the way I was raised. You have to understand I have a lot of biases because I was raised in a religiously divided home. So as an adult, I'm clearly only a spiritualist who refuses to acknowledge any organized religion. It happens. We are who we are, by the way, because of the way we've come up through the world. So it's not so unusual for me to be a spiritualist, with one grandmother being an astrologer and the other grandmother being a psychic. So my mother's religion was, I tried, but the spirituality was much more for me. So, it's not like I don't believe. I just don't believe in the dogma. That's how I always put it. So you're talking about a vehicle for propaganda, enlightenment. Hey, I got my program fixed. So, I mean, I went to a lecture and now you got a video. So, I mean, it's, sometimes it's not so bad, okay? But I can tell you that you've got to look at where it is you're getting your news. One tip I will tell you is a lot of people in this country, especially this country, I don't know about other countries, but this country, wow, is watching something that's calling itself news. But if you look up its paperwork, it's not news. It's opinion and it's entertainment. I've read the paperwork. But it's a vehicle for propaganda and people think it's news. Actually, when I hear a lot of garbage online, usually my statement will be, you watch too much Fox News. Which, by their paperwork, and I'm not stating anything that's false, and I'm not even being disparaging toward them, but I'm telling you the truth. And I don't think that everyone's aware of that truth. So, the other thing that shows up there is health. Now, I find it really interesting that you're okay with sex offenders in your cabinet, but, once you start stepping on our health, that's a problem. I think a lot of things should be a problem, not just that. But I also want to say to you, and this might sound odd, please be aware with that 2nd to 8th house issue and partners having issues, there could be a health factor. So if you start finding that your partner is like not making sense, perhaps there's something wrong. So another thing to consider in all of this. The other thing is that people who spread propaganda might not be quite 100% either. There could be health issues of some sort, of one kind or another. Okay, so I want to look at now, I had to turn off some lights because it's hard, it's easier for me to see, especially with these, I have a black background here. So the up here at 20 degrees, 25 minutes, we have a combination up here of Valentine coming from the 9th. That's what excites us. That's what turns us on. It can be heart issues. And remember, health is involved here. Both are retrograde. But let's say somebody has a heart condition. Please take care of yourself right now. Okay? This could also be blood. Valentine is also known for blood. Okay? So if there's a lot of blood issues, that could also be a health problem. Okay? 22 degrees, which is 10th house, look at body language. Okay? So I'm not just referring, this is our body language, and we want to also be very aware of our body language. This could also be that because of health reasons, people are encouraged to lose weight, to take care of their bodies, to eat better, to get more rest. Things that are really important to the body. Notice that the body is not retrograde. So really take care of yourself. Watch your diet, especially as we go into these holidays where all we do is drink alcohol and eat sugar. Two big poisons, okay? And I'm bad because I'm a baker. So this is like the time of year where I'm trying all these great recipes and I'm taking all these baked goods to these parties. Let's talk about sugar. So we're all guilty. Just be careful. It's wonderful to treat yourself. it's a whole other issue to overindulge. So we go across the dial. Those are the only two I really want to talk about. I did not pull up my big list because it's becoming too clear to me that I tend to overwhelm people with what I know. So what I thought I would do is I'd stay pretty simple today. I know anytime somebody talks asteroids, centaurs, trans-Neptunians, we've gone beyond simple. But I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So as I head down to the IC of the chart, fourth house cusp, again we have advice, education. See, you see that the full moon has already taken place in my life. I'm here. I had no program on the last one. Literally, you had to look at a chart. So there has been, okay? So look forward to those things. And now I can teach this way again. So the idea of listening to advice, and by the way, listening to advice and taking advice are two different things, okay? So I'm not saying that everybody will take the advice, but here again, if you're looking at something about your body and you're looking to work with your health, you would be wise to listen to advice, okay? Although remember that some advice could be related to propaganda so that someone else can gain at your expense. Okay, I'm throwing all of this out there because these are scenarios that could crop up around you, particularly in the next several weeks. The ISIS is telling us that in order to, and I know things are going slow, but maybe they're going slow because things have to be done in pieces because of the health of the situation, not to excite others. This is going to be true, personal life, big overall pictures with governments, committees, work, all of this. So you see how I put that little story together? Got to watch these things. Not everything that's being said to you is true. It might only have a percentage of truth to it. This is where Americans really screw up, in my opinion. Okay? But I heard it on the news. And then I want to say, what channel? So, as we move on, okay, I do want to point out that Venus is just outside of that. And we'll talk about that later. It's not in the angle. Okay, at 9 degrees Aquarius. Now, what's interesting is that that the 9 degrees of Aquarius is, well, I'm not even going to get into it. That's actually a part of something else. So I'll get into that later, or I won't, because that's another rabbit hole. I might look at it briefly. So basically, at here, okay, is things are being done in pieces. So you're having to use your intuition, psychic ability, for some people, listening to psychics, astrologers, people who look at that. That's also very Cassandra, which is right here. So we have Cassandra, we have Isis, and we have, let me make sure I do this right, because really I can do either. This is what happens when you have two monitors. This actual chart is on the other computer. However, I've noticed that I have been able to show things on here. So basically down here, I'll go back to here, and for some people, this will be the psychics and the attention to psychics and the Poseidon, trying to enlighten ourselves, working on our spirituality. For a lot of people who are intuitive, listening to people who are psychic, particularly if they're spiritual leaning, which a lot are, most are, actually all the ones I listen to are, then you're you're working on your own psychic intuitive abilities. Okay. However, some people are being triggered. Did you notice how I changed that whole way it's presented? Some people are being triggered, propaganda, probably because of the people they're associating with. Back up to what excites us, back up to health. See how it all creates conversations, which is what I really wanted this video to be about, which is why I didn't use the other one. And what do we have here? Emotional wounding. You know, it's really interesting because no matter how you feel about some of the people who are now supposedly going to be running this country, they're all wounded. Now, we're all wounded. We all have this, okay? But I mean, they had tough childhoods, not good childhoods, abusive childhoods. And you can go look that up, okay? So one of the things we're dealing with is this emotional wounding. And here again, think about our partner relationships I just talked about earlier and how much emotional wounding is affecting them. Something to think about. The last thing I'm going to talk about before I move to the dial is I want to talk about, here we go again! Well, not only did we have a repeat president, as I shake my head, oh my God, but I do believe that those people who forgot what it was like will begin to remember. Here we go again. And did we not have a memory asteroid in our first configuration? Interesting times. But it can also be within those partners and those relationships to those closest to us that we could also be feeling like, not again. I actually had a client this week. I love her. She's like a daughter to me. I've known her most of her life. And she's a second generation. I have a lot of those. And she's going through something with her own child, as we all have these things. And I know I can hear your voice, oh my God, I can't go through this again. You know what? We've all raised kids. We've all been there. But I think it's hilarious that, it's something I legitimately have seen this week in my own work. Yep, there it is again. Okay, so think about that and think about those things within your own life. Because the turmoil that is upon us as a world is also affecting us as individuals. So it's macro level, but we can't forget us on the micro level. That's you, that's me, that's all just the people. Okay? Now, I'm going to do I don't want it to be much longer than this, but I do want to look at the dial, and I do want to go through particularly the sun-moon axis. And that, there we are, okay? So, let me just check something, because I think it's 23. This is where wait a minute, I know I can do this. I can do it this way. There it is. Okay, now it's exact. I don't know why that 7 minutes meant something to me, but it did. Okay, so a couple things I want to point out to you. There is a no Jupiter on this, okay? And that no Jupiter is, that's rather interesting. I'm looking at my other chart. Got two up. It's interesting because those are beneficial connections. Straight up. That's a beneficial connection. Okay? And yeah, neither of which are retro either. So we are dealing with what could be some beneficial connections. But you have to be careful because when Jupiter is with the north node, it's also with the south node. So even though that might be a really great connection, it could cause some overindulgence in somewhere or somewhere for you to go beyond the boundaries of what you should go. So you just want to be careful. The Sun Moon also brings in Vesta EQ, which is a focus on goals. Okay, so at least for the Washington chart, we do see that there's a focus on goals, and that would be true for people like me, because I live close enough to DC that that would still be in effect. The thing that got me here also, and I waited till last to actually do it. Well, not really. There's one more I'm going to do after this. But I wanted to look at also the Mars ascendant. Because we think of, now, and I believe, and I'm going to tell you in a second, I believe Mars is retrograde. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Not yet. I think it goes retrograde. I'm going to go back to my chart so I can look at this. And here it is. Yep, it is retro. Okay, I was right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the dial. I never trust what I see, but if it has a red mark on solar fire, it's generally retrograde, and Mars has a red mark. Okay, I just had to double check it. So what we're looking at with that ascendant Mars is we could be looking at the ongoing wars and what they're doing, but I got to be honest with you people, it's some people who are extremely passive aggressive in their anger. Not good. And here we go back to childhood traumas, things that we might not be feeling well about, feeling good about, things that could be exciting. So you see how that they all play together. And they are all creating these incredible conversations. People are mad. And in their anger, they can't be direct. So they have to be passive aggressive. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, this is where Venus comes in, okay? And I didn't, it's hard to explain this unless I can show it to you. Here's Venus. Look where it is in relationship to the ascendant. It's about 30 minutes off, which means it's an aspect. So it means that the Sun equals Venus. Okay, now things to be careful of. People, and since it's the Sun, no, it's the ascendant, it's the environment, so it's okay, it's the environment. It's not, oh no, I'm sorry, it is the Sun. What am I doing? Whoa! This is a rabbit hole. I don't want to go down. Okay, so it is the Sun, which means, and this is why it's really important for me to say this, it's not far from the ascendant, but it's the Sun. It's actually telling me that there could be selfishness. That somebody, a male, is very selfish. Okay? Self-serving. Okay? That could be in your life. Not just heads of government, which we already know that's true. But I really feel that that's, and also the fact that there's a lot of excitement. Here we go with that Eros. Okay, so first we have Valentine. Now we have Eros. Somebody's pushing it with their health, their heart. Now, could also have to do with, I would say reproductive rights, and it still could depending on your individual situation. But I often think of the Sun and Venus together as somebody who is fun-loving, can be kind, but is most often narcissistic in that they're very selfish, self-aware. I want to use the word self-aware. So, you know, look out, people. Just look out. Venus with the sun isn't all bad, though. Okay, I mean, Venus itself is a beneficiary. It's a great planet. Um, it's social activities. It can be generosity. It can be related to a value system. I just, in my personal look at this, often see the sun, Venus can also be a selfishness, because it's more about what the self is excited about rather than the kindness and goodness for all people. Okay? Please note that the moon is there as well, and so that means that the moon also is there. Hestia is there, so there's a lot of focus on goals. But you know, to me, this could be people who are working on behalf of women are trying to make headway. So, or women themselves. Because I do believe that you can't ignore Eris. And she's here. And she is not happy. And that means the rise of the feminine principle is still very much upon us. And it kind of shows up in this chart, which is where I wanted to go and what I wanted to talk about when I said, I don't know if I'll get there, and I got there. But I'm going to leave it there. Because we think of, but before I go, we think of Jupiter and we think of Venus as being very good for us. And I think they can be good for us. But I think it's a matter of not taking things too quickly, accepting the fact that things move slowly, people move slowly. And also, we're in the process of remaking ourselves as people, as governments, as women. And when I say feminine principle, and I do want to stress this, feminine principle does not mean women per se, although Venus does and the moon does, but not Venus, not the principle of femininity. I have male friends who have what I call very strong constitutions based in feminine principles. They have compassion. They have empathy. They are people who include all, they're just inclusive. They're okay with you as long as you're a good person. You don't have to be a certain creed, color, sex, gender base. You don't have to be any of those things. It matters what's in your heart, okay? And realize that the feminine principle is about compassion and caring for those who are less fortunate. Okay? And it is rising now. And the people who bring that about, of course, are women. But I've seen women who are absolute toxic masculinity. They're bullies. Okay? That does not make them a part of the feminine principle. That makes them part of the toxic masculinity, which needs to be squashed. Okay? And it will be. And you and I, we don't really have to do anything because it's in the plan. The big plan, the big picture plan. And even though it moves slow for us, too slowly, it's still happening. And we have to have faith. So chin up, people. Take care of yourself, particularly your physical anatomy and your mental health. Actually, that's everything, isn't it? Well, you can take care of your families too. But with that said, until we meet again, I wish you only happy reading.